The first time I saw her, she was standing in the rain without an umbrella, holding hers over a shivering dog. Water streamed down her face, plastering her hair against her cheeks. But she didn't seem to notice. She was smiling at that dog like it was the most important thing in the world. I remember thinking how crazy she looked, how foolish. I had no idea that woman would end up saving my life. That was 3 years ago, back when I thought kindness was a weakness and people who helped strangers were either naive or looking for something in return. I was a different person then, angry at the world, angry at myself. My business had failed, my marriage had crumbled, and I'd pushed away everyone who ever cared about me. I'd moved to a small apartment in downtown Portland, Oregon, determined to disappear into the crowd, to become nobody. I was doing a pretty good job of it, too. Her name was Maya, though I didn't learn that until weeks after our first real conversation. She lived in the apartment below mine, and I'd see her in the hallways, always carrying something for someone else. Groceries for the elderly man in 3B, a potted plant for the single mom in 2C, books for the teenager whose parents worked double shifts. She moved through that building like a gentle current, touching lives without asking for anything in return. I avoided her. People like that made me uncomfortable. They reminded me of who I used to be before cynicism calcified around my heart like armor. But Maya had a way of seeing through walls. It started small. She'd knock on my door with extra soup she'd accidentally made too much of. She'd ask if I could help her carry something, though I later realized she never actually needed help. She'd invite me to building potlucks that I never attended. She was persistent without being pushy, present without being intrusive. It was annoying. It was also exactly what I needed, though I was too stubborn to admit it. The turning point came on a Tuesday in November. I'd been alone in my apartment for 3 days, hadn't showered, hadn't eaten anything but crackers and whiskey. The depression had wrapped around me like a weighted blanket, and I couldn't find the energy to care. I'd been staring at a bottle of pills for an hour, counting them, recounting them, thinking about how easy it would be to swallow them all and finally stop, feeling this crushing weight. Then came the knock. "Hey, neighbor, I made too many tamales again. Want some?" I ignored it. She knocked again. "I know you're in there. I can hear your TV." "Go away," I managed to croak out. Silence. Then softly, "I'm not going away. You can either open the door and take these tamales, or I'm going to sit out here and tell you about my entire day in excruciating detail. Your choice." Despite everything, I felt my lips twitch. "That's not a real choice." "Sure it is." So this morning, I woke up at 5:47 a.m., which was weird because usually I wake up at 5:45, and I started thinking about why those 2 minutes mattered. I opened the door. She was sitting on the floor in the hallway, her back against my doorframe, a container of tamales in her lap. When she looked up at me, her expression didn't change. She didn't look shocked by my appearance, didn't recoil from the smell of stale alcohol and unwashed human. She just smiled. "Hungry?" I should have said no. I should have taken the food and closed the door. Instead, I found myself nodding. And then somehow she was inside my apartment, and she was opening windows, and suddenly there was air and light, and she was talking about everything and nothing, while I sat on my couch feeling like I'd just surfaced from deep water. She didn't ask what was wrong. She didn't offer platitudes or advice. She just stayed heating up tamales in my microwave, talking about the neighborhood cat who'd had kittens in the basement, about the new coffee shop that made terrible coffee but had the friendliest barista. Normal things, human things. When she finally left 3 hours later, the bottle of pills was still on my coffee table. But I didn't look at them the same way anymore. After that night, I stopped avoiding her. I started saying yes to the soup, yes to helping carry things, yes to the potlucks. Slowly, carefully, like someone relearning how to walk after an accident, I started rejoining the world. Maya never mentioned that Tuesday night. Never treated me like a broken thing she'd fixed. She just included me in her orbit of kindness, and gradually, I began to understand what she'd known all along. Kindness isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing there is. I learned her story in pieces over the following months. She'd been a nurse before moving to Portland, had worked in a children's hospital in Chicago. She'd left after losing a patient, a 7-year-old girl named Sophie who'd been like a daughter to her. The grief had nearly destroyed her. But instead of letting it turn her bitter, She'd let it crack her open. She'd moved across the country and decided to dedicate her life to small acts of love, to being present for people in ordinary moments, because she'd learned that ordinary moments were actually everything. "Sophie taught me that," she told me, one evening as we sat on the building's roof watching the sunset. She knew she was dying, and you know what she worried about? Whether her mom would remember to water her plants, whether her dad would still watch their favorite show. She wanted the people she loved to keep living, really living, not just surviving. I understood then why Maya was the way she was. She was living for Sophie, yes, but also for everyone. She was choosing every single day to add light to the world instead of darkness. It was a radical act, and it was changing everything around her, including me. I started looking for ways to help others. Nothing dramatic. I couldn't be Maya, couldn't match her natural warmth. But I could shovel Mrs. Henderson's walk when it snowed. I could tutor the teenager Marcus in math. I could listen when the single mom, Priya, needed to vent about her ex. Small things. Human things. My therapist, whom I'd finally agreed to see after Maya gently suggested it might help, said I was rebuilding my sense of purpose. My sponsor at AA meetings, which I'd also finally started attending, said I was working on my amends by being of service. They were both right, but it was more than that. I was learning that we save each other, all of us, all the time, in tiny ways that might seem insignificant but actually mean everything. Last month, Maya got a call from Chicago. The children's hospital where she'd worked was opening a new wing and wanted to name it after Sophie. They asked if Maya would come back for the dedication ceremony. She said yes, and I could see the fear and hope warring in her eyes. "Will you come with me?" she asked. "I don't think I can do this alone." Of course I said yes. How could I say anything else to the woman who'd sat outside my door and talked about her morning? Routine until I opened it? Who'd shared her tamales and her time and her stubborn, relentless hope? We drove to Chicago together, and I held her hand during the ceremony. As she stood in front of that beautiful new wing with Sophie's name on it, I watched her cry and laugh and hug Sophie's parents, who thanked her for loving their daughter so completely. I saw her realize that her grief had been transformed into something life-giving, that Sophie's memory was now attached to a place where other children would be healed. On the drive back to Portland, Maya was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Thank you for coming with me." "Thank you for knocking on my door," I replied. She glanced over at me, and in her eyes I saw the same recognition I felt. We had saved each other, not in one dramatic moment, but in 1,000 small ones. In tamales and rooftop conversations and road trips and showing up, in choosing every day to be human with each other. That's what I think about now when I see someone struggling. I think about Maya standing in the rain with her umbrella over a shivering dog. I think about how foolish I thought she looked, and how wrong I was. She wasn't being foolish. She was being brave. She was choosing to care in a world that makes it so easy not to. I'm trying to do the same now. Some days are harder than others. Some days the old darkness creeps back, and I have to fight to keep the light. But then I remember that I don't have to fight alone. None of us do. Her, that woman in the rain, that stubborn, beautiful soul who refused to let me disappear. She taught me that we're all connected, that our small acts of kindness ripple out in ways we can't imagine, that being human means being vulnerable and present and brave enough to care. She saved my life by living hers with intention and love. Now I'm trying to pass that gift forward, one small moment at a time, because that's what we do. We save each other, over and over again, in the most ordinary, extraordinary ways.